Welcome to this special episode of the Chiefs, and of course, with us right now are Robbie Alampay of One News, and joining us in a little bit, will be Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Si Ami nagsasarapatan ng dyaryo dahil
Hmm.
may breaking story
May
tayo.
balita.
Congress passed on third and final reading with a vote of 179 yes votes yung anti-terror bill, which is an adopted bill from the Senate version. In other words, they adopted the Senate version in toto and just passed it on second yesterday and then third and final reading tonight.
Ibig sabihin nun, Bok, wala nang BICAM.
So mukhang
If
yun na nga,
adopted,
mukhang
diba?
wala ng BICAM because wala namang pinagkaiba. They just adopted in toto the Senate version, so BICAM is virtually meaningless and academic. So from what we hear, kailangan na lang siguro ng ratification ng both chambers of Congress, which is also going to be moot, I suppose, dahil galing
Yeah.
sa kanila to. And then it's for signature by the president, who certified it as urgent ready yesterday or the other day. So it's as good as gold.
Yeah,
You might say.
and to be sure, as big as this news is, it really wasn't a surprise to anyone. Even prior to COVID, this was really already in the priority list. Inaksyonan na to. Even the leaders of both houses had said from the start na mangyari to. If anything, the only surprise was it was still a priority and it was still the most urgent thing on Congress minds in the middle of this pandemic. That was really the only thing that
the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair to Congress naman, they were talking about this before the COVID crisis. I think it was in January or February. They were already discussing the versions of the bill, and the Senate has already gone through the bill on its own. So, yun nga lang biglang naging swabe ang ang daan ngayon pang panahon ng pandemya. You might say.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things to talk about.
Pasok na natin agad.
Sige, let's
usapan na agad.
For tonight, we have several guests, some for and some against Bill, and some to give us legal advice as to the details of the bill. Unahin natin siyempre yung proponents ng bill, among them, si Congressman Jonas Nograles is from the PBA party list, ang pwersa ng Bayan Atleta party list. Congressman, thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Ed. Good evening, Robbie. Thanks for having me back at the Chiefs.
Yes, sir.
Good evening,
Good to see you. Bigla kaming na-conscious kasi nakaano kayo eh.
Hindi na kami sanay nakakakita ng nakakurbata eh.
ang hindi niyo makita, naka-shorts ako.
Okay.
Okay lang yan. Kami rin naman eh.
Pang-balance eh.
Sir, anyway, Congressman Nograles, again, thank you for joining us. And it was a busy night for Congress. But did we get it correct? Na because it is an adopted bill from the Senate version, so hindi na po kailangan ng bicameral conference committee. Diretso na po to sa ratification ba and then signature?
To be exact about it, the House voted 173 yes.
Okay, 173.
And 31 no, and 29 abstain to the measure. And this measure has no disagreeing provisions with the Senate, which was passed in third and final reading last year. And having no disagreeing provisions, our legislative process shows that they will just print the bill, the enrolled bill, and it will wait for the action of the executive. Of where this bill is right now, it is now an enrolled bill.
Yes, sir. Sir, before we go to the contents of the bill, so bale, hindi na kailangan ng ratification at all. Not even ratification.
The ratification would be from the president. So that's the action of the executive. So we since there are no disagreeing provisions, it is just a matter of printing the enrolled bill. So as an enrolled bill, it is ready for signature of the president after printing.
Okay. So Congressman, pasok po tayo dun sa provisions ng bill. People have been reading this. Some people have been following it. Some people following in greater detail than others. Maybe you could summarize for us very quickly the salient points. In particular, how does it define terrorism? And secondly, who gets to say who's a terrorist?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that is to answer your second question: who gets to say who's a terrorist? Number one, it would be the judiciary that will determine who is a terrorist individual or a terrorist organization. This is by the judicial process called proscription, which is enumerated in the measure.
Section
Second
26.
is
Ah,
the yeah. Second, it would be the United Nations Security Council that would, in their processes, determine who is a terrorist individual and who are terrorist organizations that are accepted worldwide. And this bill allows for our government to adopt who are these terrorist individuals and organizations that are determined by the United Nations. And yung pangatlo is yung kinakatakutan ng marami, yung tinatawag na designation by the Anti-Terrorism Council. The designation of the Anti-Terrorism Council will come from the council itself deliberating on the evidence na nandyan. However, such designation does not give the council the power to arrest. It only gives them, upon designation, the obligation to inform the Anti-Money Laundering Council to watch these suspected individuals or organizations as being terrorists. So, technically speaking, the ones who truly can designate who is a terrorist, whether they are a person or a group, would be the judiciary after that the executive proves to them beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes, but sir, a lot of the concerns has to do with before it gets to the courts. I mean, the whole process of getting arrested, being tagged. I know it's a loaded word, but it seems an accurate word right now. Getting tagged and so on. All of the processes prior to even getting your day in court. That's the concern of a lot of people.
I am aware that a lot of people are concerned, and I really welcome this concern. I mean, it's democracy in action here, and people are standing up to the rights that they have. Unfortunately, a lot of people have not read the bill or have not asked questions or clarifications on it. Now, let us clarify, and I'm really glad you asked. Who can be arrested here without a warrant? Pwede ba natin i-discuss yan para mabilisan?
Sige, sir. Sige, sir.
Who can be arrested without a warrant? Ang sagot dyan, the people who can be arrested without a warrant, they fall under the same rules in our existing laws. In the rules of court, I believe it's Rule 113 of the rules of court. But this bill is taking it a little further because hindi automatic na pag ang police officer inisip niya na terrorist yan ay pwede na niyang i-aresto in the name of the anti-terror law. Hindi. You cannot just do that. You have to go to the ATC or the Anti-Terrorism Council and ask for the ATC's approval to arrest that person because of violations of the anti-terror law.
Yes, sir. But,
So,
but to put a fine point, sir, if you don't mind, to put a fine point on the concerns of the people. If you say that actually the police cannot do that, you're saying by law they cannot do that. But the reality in this country is that the police act illegally in many respects. And by the time they are reprimanded, hopefully they're reprimanded, by the time their actions are reversed, a grave injustice has already been done. For example, a recent case cited by one congressman today is police acting on their own to arrest somebody for libel when there was no complaint for libel. It just so happened to be. In that particular case, I'll take that as an illustration, the police cannot do that. And yet they do it. And that's the concern of people here, that police might take it and do things under this act, in the name of this act, and even if they were to get reversed, a grave injustice will already have taken place.
And that's the reason why we placed safeguards here. If any police officer would violate this law or does grave abuse their discretion utilizing or in the name of this law or this bill, then that police officer will face 10 years jail time. There are
Sir,
penalties for people who abuse this. But I know you're talking about realities. But when we craft legislation, there is this thing as a presumption naman of regularity that things would go correctly naman. I mean, that's how laws are crafted.
yes, sir. Sir, let me bring in, let me also introduce Ana Marie Pamentuan of the Philippine Star, who also joins us tonight. Ami, welcome, welcome back to the Chiefs. Sir, but along those lines, sir, kasi as you have mentioned, and that is correct, military and law enforcement personnel can only arrest with the approval of the Anti-Terror Council, which is composed of 9 people, mostly from the cabinet, headed by the executive secretary. So basically, what you have is a council that can authorize arrests and detention for up to 14 days plus 10 possibly by basically people from the executive.
Following the rules of warrantless arrest under Rule 113 of the court, plus additional safeguards. So we also have to put into consideration that when a person is arrested, the arresting officer and the arresting authority has to follow all the existing laws. And I'll point specifically to Republic Act number 7439, which ensures the rights of everybody who is detained. Now, this bill even adds an additional safeguard to that. I may be wrong, but I think this is the only measure where it requires an arresting officer to inform the judiciary immediately upon arrest or detention of any person, as well as inform the Commission on Human Rights of any arrest or detention. There is also the responsibility that anybody who is arrested or detained must be given counsel. If they don't have counsel, they'll be given a public attorney, and that person who is detained or arrested, the attorney or even the Commission on Human Rights can go to the court and file for habeas corpus to let this person free if they believe that this person is wrongfully arrested. And if that person is wrongfully arrested, the arresting officer again go to jail for 10 years.
Congressman.
And that is prior to the 24 days na nare-report po. The 14 days plus 10 days. I mean, that is all with it. In other words, because that has been reported and a big part of the anxiety of a lot of people. The proposed provision that a warrantless arrest and detention can then be effected for 14 days, extendable by another 10 days. What you're saying is actually those safeguards can actually cut short that immediately.
Yes, absolutely. Those safeguards could cut those short. Imagine that at any point, if that wrongful arrest is there, you have your lawyer or your public authority will go straight to the court and say, hey, this is a wrongful arrest. A lot of people are afraid because there's an additional power or responsibility that's given to the executive. But we try to balance it to have an additional obligation or obligations as well as additional punishments for any abuse. Because we know that enforcers of the law from time to time abuse and from time to time forget how to do it and from time to time make a mistake. Now, on the 14 days, a lot of people ask, why 14 days? There's a practical answer to that. The first would be terrorism is a regional affair. And being a regional affair, we agree that terrorists through the porous borders throughout our country can come and go for, lack of being able to defend our territory from entering or even through our airports. They would come in. Now, what happened recently in the past X number of years is that terrorists have made the Philippines a haven to operate because there's no law against them here. We do not even recognize foreign terrorists at the moment. We don't have any law that recognizes foreign terrorists. But going back to the 14 days, you look at Indonesia. In Indonesia, they can do warrantless arrests for 21 days. In Malaysia, 58 days. In Singapore, 730 days. No wonder terrorists would love to go to the Philippines and say, hey, we are not defined here by law as a terrorist. We can stay here, we can live here. And that is the reason, believe it or not, and this was presented under oath by the executive, Marawi was preventable. Martial law was preventable if we had a strong anti-terrorism law. Likewise,
Congressman,
the bombing law was also preventable because there was actionable intelligence, but we couldn't do anything because we don't have any sufficient legislation to stop a terrorist from executing their crime totally. Yes, Abby.
Congressman, there was a Human Security Act that you are actually amending. Ang problema lang naman ngayon is the timing. One is the timing, and another is the ano-ano ba yung mga offenses na yon. And in fact, meron tayo also na description kung sino yung, we actually have a description of at least one group or two groups siguro na foreign terrorist organizations as defined by the United States. Yan yung Abu Sayyaf at saka yung New People's Army. No? Ang inaalala ng mga tao ngayon, because of the timing, bakit daw minadali? Well, yun ang tingin nila na minadali. During a pandemic, bakit daw is there a clear and present danger or whatever you want to call it to make this bill urgent, saka ano-ano yung mga offenses that would constitute terrorism. Kasi today, ngayon lang, kailan mga a few, siguro, late this afternoon, dinaro ni Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana na protest naman daw does not constitute terrorism. Maybe you can clarify ano-ano ba yung mga offenses na yan under this new legislation. We already have a Human Security Act na define actually yung mga terrorist. Ano yung pagbabago dito sa bagong bill na to?
Well, unang-una, maraming nagsasabi na minadali ito. Medyo mahirap naman na to agree with that saying na minadali ito dahil matagal na ho itong pinapanday. This is about 7 years in the making. But it's only this time that it was certified as urgent by the executive. So because it was certified as urgent by the executive and the Senate has already passed it on third and final reading, the House responded to the call of the executive. As to why the executive certified this as urgent and the clear and present necessity to pass it immediately, I think it's best to ask the executive on that one. But this bill was already approved by 173 congressmen. But I would like to assure a lot of people that this has gone through years na pinapanday. Ang kasunod nito is that whatever yung mga malabo or kailangan i-clarify, pwede naman yan madaan sa IRR. And yung IRR na yan, pinapanday din yan kasama ang Kongreso. And we are also putting in this bill, a joint oversight committee to make sure that any abuse of discretion, meron ding oversight ng Kongreso kung merong mga abuse dito. Now, going back to your question, mahaba-haba ang Section 4. But let me summarize it with these points. Number one, activism is not terrorism. There is a big difference between...
Protest is not.
No, oh my gosh, no,
okay.
no.
Criticizing
No,
the president or the administration, you will not get arrested for terrorism. Malinaw ba yun?
Absolutely, go ahead, criticize. It's your right. It's very clear in Section 2, which is the spirit of the law. And we all know that when we make state policies in laws, if the law there has gone beyond the state policy, then that action is already a grave abuse of discretion on the part of the
Hmm.
executive. Ang
Sir, what
importante
about
kasi is,
yes, sir.
let
Sir,
me read it verbatim, if I may, para klaro kasi mahirap na na maraming conjectures na mali.
Yes.
I will read this second paragraph
Hmm.
of well, 2 paragraphs if okay. It's just
Okay.
short lang naman. Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is declared a policy of the state to protect life, liberty, and property from terrorism, to condemn terrorism as inimical and dangerous to the national security of the country and to the welfare of the people, and to make terrorism a crime against the Filipino people, against humanity, and against the law of nations. In the implementation of the policy stated above, the state shall uphold the basic rights and fundamental liberties of the people as enshrined in the Constitution. I'll skip to the last line of Section 2, where it says, in the exercise of the constitutionally recognized powers of the executive department shall not prejudice the respect for human rights, which shall be absolute and protected at all times. Dissent to the government, that's fine. That's constitutionally protected. Rally, that's fine. Ang hindi po natin gusto is the violence.
yes, sir. And I think we all agree with that. I think, sir, we all agree with that. Pero, sir, to particular specific to a point, for example, the government, specifically yung task force against local insurgency and the PCOO, they've identified several groups like Karapatan, Bayanuna, even the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines as terrorist or terrorist affiliated. So where does this fall in? Where do these groups fall in? Do they espouse violence? Are they part of a terrorist group? And if you leave it to the ATC, the Anti-Terrorist Council, that's a 9-member group composed mostly of cabinet members, should these groups be worried to begin with?
As I mentioned earlier, if this bill passes into law, hindi PCOO magdedetermine kung sino ang terrorist.
Yes, sir, I understand. It is prescription by the courts. But
exactly.
These groups would be affected by designation by the ATC, and which would be or could be followed by seizure of assets by the AMLAC, which is part of the ATC.
Designation and seizure of assets are 2 separate processes. The seizure of assets by the AMLAC will only occur under the rules and the implementing regulations of the AMLAC, not under this law. So separate po yung law na yan.
But Congressman,
measure is just, as far as designation is concerned, it does not lead to arrest. But it tells the AMLAC, hey, watch out for these guys. If you find them suspicious, then do as you must. It's as simple as that.
What happens in that process in the meantime, where in your words earlier, all that the ATC can do is essentially, once my designation, to tell AMLAC to monitor the assets of these organizations or these individuals?
Then it's entirely up to the AMLAC to act upon these individuals in the same manner that they would act upon any other individual that they are watching.
And the data is preserved. The data, it remains private and secure from government in this particular case.
I'm not sure kung what the AMLAC does, because that's already the AMLAC process. But yes, I think that is how the laws of anti-money laundering work. And at the same time, supposing that a person or individual has been designated, let's not forget that there's this thing called the writ of habeas data, which they can also file about, hey, you're monitoring me, I'd like to know what you know. And
Sir, just following through on yung concern ni Ed, still on safeguards. And again, I admit, I'm not proceeding from a legal perspective. I'm proceeding from, as you acknowledge, reality in this country. Ed mentioned examples of representatives of government agencies, the PCOO, for example. very wantonly, very recklessly, very publicly red tagging organizations. When you talk about disciplining civil servants, not just the police, but any representative of government for abuse of power, are there any provisions or mechanisms against red tagging? Because as you know, the reality here on red tagging goes beyond legalities. You get red tag, you can get killed.
Well, this bill doesn't allow extrajudicial killings, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So
I'm talking about
tagging
officials. I'm talking about officials who have been very reckless in their red tagging, very public, very reckless. In this case, for example, is there a safeguard against officials, not just police, who would very recklessly invoke this law to red tag
Well,
organizations and individuals?
Robbie, that instance is not contemplated in this measure, but it's contemplated, I believe, in other laws naman, and they can go to the ombudsman and the civil service to complain about people who are abusing their authority. But this one, our measure that we're talking about is purely on terrorism.
Yes,
Um,
but you see
and
where the concern is coming from, sir.
I understand.
No, I mean just you talk about existing laws. May existing laws naman eh. Yung mga but you know for a fact na walang nangyari sa mga officials na nagre-red tag all of these past months and all of these past years talking about existing laws. What more with this anti-terror law? That's the question for a lot of people.
It's a valid question, and I join you in asking the same question on why there are no movements there. But
And why
as
was
far
it
as
not
this law is
contemplated? I
concerned,
mean,
we
that's the
cannot.
question for people. Then why was it not, in your words, contemplated in this law?
Because that's a separate topic, Robbie. I'm sorry. I mean, we're only limited into
Yes.
the
Okay.
bill.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me go back to Section 29. The Anti-Terror Council is allowed to authorize agents of the PNP and the military to arrest people suspected of committing terrorist acts and yun nga, hold them for up to 14 days before bringing them to the courts. That in itself is sir, hindi ba that in itself is quite a bit of power given to the ATC, an executive body, allowing it to order the arrest of people suspected of committing violations of Section 4 up to Section 12 of the Anti-Terror Bill for 14 days. I mean, even assuming that hindi magtuloy-tuloy ang kaso sa korte, the fact is that 14 days plus 10 is already more than 3 weeks of your life, and that's a lot of time for a lot of people, and that has an effect on whether people are free to express themselves.
That is correct with what you're saying, but dagdagan po natin, you have to see it in the bigger picture that upon arrest, they have to immediately notify the CHR,
Yes, sir.
the lawyer, the doctor, the arrest court, and they can do all their legal remedies there. And if somebody is wrongfully arrested, can that person or detained for X number of days, can that person seek damages from the government? And the answer is yes, as seen on Section 32 of the Civil Code, where a person who is a victim of an unlawful action from the government can claim damages, actual damages, and punitive. And the courts can even reward them for such abuse.
Sir, isa na
A
lang
lot
question.
a lot of this is really given to the courts for the courts to determine. A lot of people are afraid of the executive, and I see that. I understand that, and it can be, it can be it is a valid concern that we don't want to give. That's why we need to balance it. But truth be told, there is also a clear and present danger of terrorism in our country, and we have been victims. I mean,
Sir,
come on,
sir.
suicide bombing happened how many times in our country in the past 2 years? We cannot deny that happens. And our current laws cannot punish a suicide bomber when they are about to commit the act. They punish a suicide bomber after they consummate the act. Anin pa ang kabayo?
Congressman, isa na lang.
That's what we're
Kasi
trying to
marami
do.
natatakot dun sa warrantless arrest eh. if you're suspected of involvement in terrorist financing or your group, and you belong to that group, can you be arrested, warrantless?
I think the burden of proof and the quantum of evidence in that proof should be beyond reasonable doubt before the ATC will risk their careers to arrest someone utilizing this law. So we also have to, like I said, we also have to be fair and see the bigger picture. But I do understand the concern.
Yeah.
Okay. Maraming salamat, sir. Congressman Jericho Nograles, thank you for joining us. We will be going to a gap. Pero sir, we'd like to stay in touch with you for future developments in this measure. Sir, so when do we expect this to be signed into law? Meron na ba schedule dyan?
That would be up to the executive already. So once the bill is enrolled and printed and given to the executive, it's really up to the executive when they're going to sign it. If I may say a parting shot,
Yes, sir.
I am afraid of abuses as well, of course. And this is something that I could not live with if there are abuses in this country. And that's why I try to fight these abuses as well. I hope that the safeguards would be utilized because that's the intent. The pure intent of this is to preserve our life, liberty, and property. Anything abused here, I would like to see those government officials to go to jail.
Okay, sir. Sir, maraming salamat po. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again.
Thanks for having
Congressman
me.
Jericho Jonas Nograles ng PBA Party List. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you pa.
Please stay with us. We will just pause for a break, so don't go away.
Welcome back to this special episode of The Chiefs. We're still waiting for our next guest, but we are discussing the anti-terror bill, which has been passed by both chambers of Congress and now awaiting the signature. Well, it will be submitted to Malacanang for the signature of President Duterte. But since he certified it as urgent, we are expecting it. We are with Ed Lingao and Bobby Alangay. Okay? We're still waiting for our guest na wala. Alam mo naman ang ating mga...
Mukhang nandito na raw, si Congressman.
Oh, kanina. Natesting natin kanina eh.
Meron na nga kanina. But anyway,
There you go.
welcome.
Ito na, ayan na si Congresswoman.
Representative Franz Castro of ACT Teachers Party List. Welcome po to the Chiefs, Congresswoman.
Good evening, Ami, Ed, and Roby. Thank you
Good evening
for inviting me.
Yes, kakausap lang po namin kay Congressman Nograles. And of course, he's a proponent of this controversial bill. And I would like to hear another perspective sa tingin namin sure na approval na itong bill, considering that it has been certified as urgent by President Duterte. Ano pong masasabi natin dito?
Yeah, dismayado kami, no? Kasi yung sarili naming proseso dito sa Kongreso ay parang kumbaga sinupersede nitong bill ng Senate. Parang limang meeting na yata kami doon sa House Congress version, pero suddenly because of the certification of the president, ito na lang yung tinalakay natin sa Senado, yung version ng Senado. Kaya nakakadismaya. Ako, nakabilang din ako doon sa discussion ng bill na version ng Congress, at nakita ko mas kumbaga mas maganda itong sa amin dito sa Congress kaysa itong Senate bill na ipinasa at inadopt ng Kongreso sa ngayon. For example, Robbie, itong sinasabi mong red tagging kanina, alam mo si Congressman, in fairness naman kay Congressman Nograles, meron siyang provision doon sa red tagging na nandoon sa version ng House na talagang ibinasura na dahil nga dito sa Senate na version. So maganda yung maganda yung ilang mga provision sana doon sa House, kaya lang ito mas worse yung ibinigay sa atin na provision kasi dito
Pero
sa
ma'am,
definition
ano yung provision na yun? Paliwanag po ninyo yung provision na yun na hindi sinama.
Tsaka dagdagan ko lang po ng konteksto yung tanong na yon, because if we remember, nung tinanong natin yon, sinabi ni Congressman Nograles, kasi ibang usapan yan. That's part of the context. We want to make that clear also, and I don't know if that figures into the explanation as to why it's been taken out according to you. Pero ano po yung provision na
Yes.
yan?
Oo, kung maalala ko, no, kasi nga yung dating bill, yung HSA, may mga safeguards doon. So halimbawa, wrongfully arrested or wrongfully na-demanda ka doon sa as terrorist. So meron doon, 'di ba, kapag everyday 500,000 per day. Meron din doon doon sa sinasabi sa provision ng police, yung 12 years binabaan nga nila ng 10 to 10 years dito eh. So tapos meron sa provision doon sa House na nadagdag ito ni Congressman Nograles, yung against sa red tagging, kasi safeguard din ito doon sa wrongful accusation ng mga ahente natin o yung mga security. Kaya tinanggal yan dito. So walang provision sa ating mga batas na against dun sa red tagging.
Pero
So
pwede
yun
kang
kasi merely suspicion lang kasi dito sa batas na ito ay considered ka na suspect. Pwede ka makulong, warrantless arrest for 24 days. So yun, pwedeng yung wiretapping legalized na dito sa batas na ito. Tapos so siyempre yung suspected ka pa lang, pwedeng ma-freeze na yung iyong mga asset. 'Di ba? Yung mga basic rights mo ay curtailed dito sa batas na ito.
Pero ang sabi ni Congressman Nograles, ang safeguard daw doon is you can go immediately to the courts and you can file complaint sa Commission on Human Rights at pwede actually reverse yung arrest. Yung pwede kayong pakawalan or pwedeng, anyway, you can take legal action.
Actually, parang walang experience. Siguro baka walang experience si Attorney Nograles, si Congressman Nograles, no? Ako parating nakakaano ng mga ikinukulong na kahit na wala pang kaso ay ilang days na nandoon sa kulungan. So what more kung isa sa batas pa itong anti-terrorism bill. Kaya talagang nangangamba kami.
Yung pong mga pangyayaring ganyan, in-acknowledge din naman ni Congressman Nograles. Pero ang isang sinabi niya na iba sa safeguard dito, very often when people are wrongfully arrested, pagkatapos napatagal ang pagkakakulong kasi wala silang access sa abogado, wala silang access sa CHR. But in this particular case, sabi niya, obligado ang police at the moment of the arrest to immediately inform the Supreme Court and the Commission on Human Rights. There is an active mechanism to provide for legal and human rights protection. That would be different from yung pagkaraniwang nangyayari na mga arrest
Welcome back to the Chief. So we'd like to apologize. Our second guest was cut off, but we'd like to thank ACT Teachers Party List Congresswoman Franz Castro. We'd like to move on to another person who can tell us more about the controversial anti-terror bill, Attorney Mel Santamaria. Good evening, Attorney Mel.
Good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening.
sir.
Yes,
Good evening, Attorney Mel.
you were hearing the pros and cons of this controversy. What are your views, Attorney? Anong tingin nyo dito?
Well, doon si kay Congressman Nograles, medyo naguluhan talaga ako sa kanya. Kasi we have to start with the law they drafted. Ano ba talaga ang nakalagay doon? So ang nakakatakot dito, yung Article 25 and Article 29. Anong nakalagay sa Article 25? Okay, any terrorist group designated by the United Nations, we will adopt. Pero ang third paragraph ng 25 is the most dangerous because nakalagay doon, nevertheless, the ACT, the Anti-Terrorist
ACT.
Council, can designate any person who committed the prohibited acts under section 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yun yung mga prohibited acts na define ang terrorist. So in effect, the ATC can designate who a terrorist is. Okay. On what basis? Ang sabi ng batas, probable cause. Kaya hindi ko nakikita kung saan hinuhugot ni Congressman yung sinasabi niyang proof beyond reasonable doubt. Because the law is very clear. The law says that on the basis of probable cause, they can make the designation. And what is alarming in this case? Walang hearing, walang proceeding, no notification to the respondent, no opportunity to belie the accusation. You contrast that with the next section, Article 26, where the Department of Justice can apply to the Court of Appeals and make and cause the declaration of an individual to be a terrorist. So we have here two modes by which a person can be declared a terrorist. One executive, one judicial. But the executive is the most powerful because unlike in section 26, where there is makikita nyo naman yung procedure, you file a case in court, there will be a hearing, evidence will be presented. Doon sa 25, it just says they can designate on the basis of probable cause a person who is a terrorist. So walang ganun. It's so very easy to supply a procedure in that particular article and yet they did not. So iyon ang question dyan. So talagang powerful. Okay.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, if I may, sir, while you're still there, if I may, sir. Pero sir, is there a difference between yung effect ng designation ng Anti-Terror Council versus yung prescription ng judiciary? I mean, mas may impact ba itong ATC designation versus yung versus yung prescription ng Court of Appeals, or kasi ang sinasabi ni Congressman Nograles, ang talagang may saysay, ang talagang may weight would be the prescription of the courts and not the ATC.
Well, you cannot see that in the law itself. Yung sinasabi niya yun, hindi mo makikita sa batas yun. Because when you look at the third paragraph of Section 25, itong nakalagay talaga, the ATC can designate, in effect, a person who is a terrorist. And on designation, pupuntahan mo yung second sentence. They could apply with the AMLAC for whatever procedure can be made under Section 11 of the AMLAC law. And the Section 11 of the AMLAC law provides that without delay, quote unquote, without delay, any designation of a terrorist relate to them by that council, the property can be frozen, quote unquote, without delay. So therefore, it is really punitive. It is really punitive. And ito, papasok tayo sa Section 29. This is really the serious part. Because under Section 29, okay, upon written authority of the council, any police or law enforcement can, ito sa akin to, euphemism for an arresto, may take into custody any person, and I will quote Taboka, so that this is the law, quote unquote, any person suspected of committing
Yeah.
act defined and penalized, unquote, under the law. Look at this. The law is very clear. Every wording of the law now must be looked into. It says suspected. So ngayon, ano ang basis mo ng suspicion? Alam naman natin, in ordinary parlance, and that is how the law should be taken. Ang suspicion, hindi pagpapatunay. Ang suspetsa, hindi napapatunayan.
Basta suspect ka.
Huhuliin mo kasi may ebidensya at huhuliin mo dahil suspicion. Nakakatakot yan. Anyway, Bo.
Okay. Attorney, you were talking about yung mga mechanisms by which makakaandar itong council and so on. But what about in the definition of terrorism itself, in the definition of, I mean, kanina nabanggit niya, inciting to terrorism, no? And so on. Are there new things in how terrorism is defined in this act that makes it even more problematic?
Oh yes, it is so broad now. Kasi hindi mo na madidistinguish ngayon kung sino ang terrorist at sino ang ordinary criminal. If you look at the prohibited acts under Section 4, ang pinakauna doon nga yung sinasabi nyo kanina, yung causes a grave danger to the life of a person, on property, etc., and a grave danger to public security and order. Kung criminal ka, ordinary, arsonist ka halimbawa, or homicide na commit mo, wala na talagang distinction, at least malabo ang batas, papaano ka nagiging terrorist if you commit just an ordinary crime. Diba? Kasi kung ang punto ng anti-terrorism law is to put some gravitas to certain acts because it is terrorism, hindi yan nililigay doon sa isang provision na iyan. Pero yung iba medyo okay naman yung iba. Hindi ko naman sinasabi lahat pangit, no? Kasi yung iba medyo massive destruction of property, extensive, may mga qualifier na dito. Pero yung unang-una pa lang doon halimbawa, grave threats ka lang, papasok doon ang grave threats. So ano ka? Terrorist ka ba? O common criminal ka? That is the problem. At sabi pa ng batas, against government and private persons. O paano yan? Di ba paano yan? So where do you draw the line? Di ba?
Yeah, attorney, both Congressman Nograles and also senators and of course proponents and those who voted for this bill, they also insist and stress and emphasize, hindi, may mga built-in safeguards dyan. In your reading of the bill, what did you see that you like by way of safeguards, and what did you see that you feel is pointless?
Okay. Wala. Bakit wala? Kasi doon sa Section 27 nila, Miranda rights lang naman yun eh. You have the right to remain silent, you have the right to counsel, you have the right to be visited by your friends, which is already actually in Republic Act 7438, yung sinasabi ni Nograles. Bakit pa natin kailangan yan? The safeguard are already built in. So this law talaga did not create any additional safeguard. Doon nga sa 7438, you are entitled to call any NGO pa accredited by the human rights. So in terms of safeguards and protection, the prevailing laws already provide that. And tama ka doon narinig kita kanina, Robby, sasabi mong experiential. Medyo nakakalimutan ata ng mga congressman natin. That law is based on experience. Kaya tayo gumagawa ng batas. Kasi may nakita tayo sa experience natin na dapat natin punuin kasi mali. Diba? Pero wala Madami pang butas dito. Ito pang isa. This is, now, sabi ng Section 29, upon written authority of the ATC, any police, for example, can take into custody, that's the wording of the law, any person suspected of a crime. Okay. kung titignan nyo yan, para lang sa akin, tama naman si Ami. It's just a euphemism for an arrest. Arresto na rin yan. Pero mo, tama rin naman si Ed. Ililigay nyo 10 days, 14, renewable ba, by another 10 days? Sobra-sobra na talaga. Talaga yon. Hindi ba pwede yon?
Pero
Attorney
Dimel, ang sasabi ni Congressman Nograles is that even within those 14 days, you will have access to your lawyer, to the CHR, to other legal remedies, even within those 14 days. Even though the bill says that you don't have to be delivered to proper judicial authorities within 14 days. So I'm trying to figure out how they whether nagkakatugma.
Ito na nga, no? Tanggalin mo itong anti-terrorism law, okay? Meron tayong Article 125 sa ating revised penal code. Either 1, 2, or 3 days lang ang detention mo. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, during those 1, 2, 3 days, pwede mo rin naman gawin yun eh. Yan yung sinasabi mong protection, pwede mong gawin yun, tawag ka sa telepono. Pero anong nangyayari? Wala naman talagang nangyayari. So kung iyon ang kakulangan nung 1, 2, 3 days, arbitrary detention, dapat sinagot na yon nung ating anti-terrorism law kasi ngayon it's 14 plus 10. Di ba? Kasi the possibilities of those things happening if 1, 2, 3 days lang, mas malawak itong 14 days. Kaya it's really nakakatakot.
Attorney Mel, ang sagot naman ng mga proponent dyan, yung argument na experiential, based on our experience, ang ini-invoke naman nila is the presumption of regularity. Actually, kung may tiwala ka sa gobyerno mo, sa law enforcement, no, yun ang sinasabi nila na parang ang ano nito, just watch us. Don't you feel reassured? Kasi sinasabi nila, you can go to the Commission on Human Rights immediately, you can go to the courts, kung merong, saka may mga provision pa rin na ni-retain yung sa wrongful arrest, na actually kaya hindi ma-implement yung Human Security Act noon dahil masyadong tough at natatakot daw yung mga law enforcers natin noon to apply that. Kaya naglagay sila netong enhanced neto. You think it's not just a case of, yun na nga, wala tayong tiwala sa mga law enforcer natin? And we should give them a chance. I mean, I'm just telling you kung ano yung argumento ng mga proponent.
You have a point. Okay, ganito yan ha. I'm trying to get back to the law again, okay? First of all, our Constitution provides presumption of innocence. And I will tell you what happens. In an ordinary criminal case, when a fiscal makes a preliminary investigation, the subject person is called a respondent. But when he finds a probable cause, he elevates the status of that respondent to an accused, not a convicted. Follow me? So accused. Bakit accused lang? Because he is still presumed innocent until proven guilty. Kaya nga siya pupunta sa korte. Pero yung third paragraph of Section 25, yung ATC will designate you already as a terrorist. And therefore, the presumption of guilt starts even before you go to court. And ang problema doon, unlike in a preliminary investigation sa fiscal na makikita mo pa yung kalaban mo, diyan sa 25 na yan, walang procedure. That's why hindi ko makita ngayon yung sinasabi niyang presumption of regularity. That has always been the mantra of official actions of government, may presumption ng regularity. But when you look at the law, in effect, there is a presumption of guilt because wala pang court proceeding. You are already tagged as a terrorist. Iyan ang nagiging problema dyan. Bakit ka mag-uumpisa sa presumption of guilt? Kaya look at all this, may mga masasamang pulis dyan, may mga pulis dyan, ang sarap ng buhay nila. Sapagkat yung mere suspicion, kakabit mo sa 29, natag na terrorist O, diba? So, pupunta kami. Huhulihin namin yan. Pero at that point in time, wala it is not expressly provided by the law itself na nagkaroon na ng proceeding in the administrative and executive level. Kasi doon sa korte, Section 26, meron yun Meron, walang problema May abogado pa doon. And then, last point doon, declaration as a terrorist.
Dinmel, let me go back to Section 25, yung designation ng ATC dun sa individuals and groups as terrorist groups. In effect, anong epekto nito? Are there sanctions that can be imposed on you if you're designated by the ATC? What does the law say, or what does the bill say? Yung penal clauses ba ng bill for those proscribed by the Court of Appeals, does that apply to those designated by the ATC o iba pa yun?
Okay. All right. Okay. When you are to be penalized o bibigyan ka na ng imprisonment, siyempre naman, korte ang magpa-file, ang gagawa niyan. Wala namang kaduda-duda yun eh. Kaya lang, ang problema dito, sa yung kamukha ng sinasabi ko kanina, saan ka mag-uumpisa? Saan ka mag-uumpisa? Presume innocent ka o presume guilty ka? Kasi papasok ka doon as a designated terrorist ka na. Di ba? And you might find it, sasabihin lang, semantics lang yan, ganyan lang yan. Pero hindi eh. Makikita mo yung consequence like, without delay, pwedeng i-freeze yung assets. Without delay, ex parte. Di ba? So, hirap talaga. That's one
Attorney, let's talk about the political reality right now. Pinasa na po ng Kongreso to. We know that the President will sign this. What are the options for people who are against this, who are concerned about this? Sabi ni spokesperson Harry Roque, di nandiyan pa rin ang Supreme Court. We know you've expressed how you feel about the Supreme Court at this moment in time. What options remains for people who are against this bill?
Alam mo, gusto ko sana sabihin sa iyo, Robbie, magdasal na lang tayo eh. Pero anyway, yeah, okay. That's a procedure provided by law. Kasi normally, Robbie, basta umaakit ka sa Supreme Court, dapat merong may na-transgress na to be able to be a real party in interest. Kaya very transcendental cases the Supreme Court will admit because nga yung issue napaka-mahalaga and far-reaching, and I think this is one of them. And I believe that
in other words, sinasabi niya po, unfortunately, kailangan may masampulan.
Well, normally ganyan.
Action ng-
Pero nakatanda mo, Robbie, very active tayo dun sa cybercrime law, di ba? Doon wala pang nasasampulan, di ba? Kaya lang, ang punto natin doon, it is of such a transcendental issue involving the freedom of speech and freedom of expression na tinake cognizance ng Supreme Court. Ngayon, kung iyan rin, ma-develop yung theory niyan, I think the Supreme Court I hope the Supreme Court will consider it as a transcendental case, and therefore they will hear it immediately. Ayun.
Sir,
May
yung inciting to terrorism, anong impact nun on ordinary people? I mean, kasi I think this is a new crime. I don't think it was mentioned in the previous anti-terror bill or anti-terror act, inciting to terrorism. Exactly what does this do, and what does this prevent people from doing?
Okay. Ngayon, ang ganda nung sinabi ni Nograles. Sabi niya, well, hindi to nakalagay naman specifically sa batas that a protest, a legitimate dissent, etc., things like that, all those words, correct, are not inclusive in the law. Kaya lang ang nakakatakot, remember this number, Section 29. Because sa Section 29, suspicion ang threshold. The level is so low. It is not even probable cause. Kaya hindi ko makita yung sinasabi ni Nograles na proof beyond reasonable doubt. Ang dali kasing gumawa ng dahilan, no? Yung sinasabi mo sa Facebook mo, baka inciting to terrorism na yan. Whether with merit or without merit, it can be used because there is a sort of a trigger in the law, yung suspicion na yon.
Halimbawa, Attorney Mel, yung nag-post sa sa social media ng reward for 50 million or whatever to kill the president, will that constitute terrorism?
Well, yes. Pero look, kaya Ami, it's not as simple as that. You cannot look at its face value. In our law, there is no crime when there is no criminal mind. Kaya titignan mo, what context was it said? Ano yun? Baka nagbibiro lang yun. Baka gusto niyo lang marami ang kanyang contact sa Facebook at sa Twitter. That is, you really have to, hindi ka agad hablot ka ng hablot dyan. Kaya nga may preliminary investigation tuwing may crime. Pero dito sa ATC, walang probable cause unilateral. Kasi, para lang sa akin, ang tingin ko sa batas, there is no express provision on any procedure. At isa pa, narinig ko si kanina, si Nograles sabi niya, di bale, aayusin naman niya ng IRR. Ngayon lang ako nakarinig na a lower level of statute will validate a law. Kasi sa ating batas, there is a hierarchy of law. Pinakamataas ang Constitution. Susunod ang statute na ginawa ng Kongreso. At susunod ang mga rules and regulation. Rules and regulation is there because it is authorized to be done by the statute. And you cannot violate the Constitution. So ngayon ako nakarinig. Kung may kulang-kulang dyan, mapupuno naman ng IRR eh. Wow! That's spectacular! so yun pa, isang issue pa rin yan.
Okay.
I suspect
Dean
marami
Mel,
pa tayong episodes dito, Bok. Mukhang hindi na
Mahaba-haba
tapos
pa yung
usapan. Mahaba-haba. Kasing haba ng Bok ni Atty. Mel.
Bok, tsaka Ami. Sabi ko bago ako matawagan ni Marian, mag-ano na ako magsisindi na ako ng kandila, wala na tapos na ang laban. Supreme Court na talaga kasi naunang mag Senate, kinopya lang ng Congress, wala nang babaguhin, ratsada talaga, 2 araw lang, tapos talaga.
Well, Dean Mel Santa Maria, thank you very much for a very colorful and very down-to-earth explanation of the law and bill that is about to be signed into law. And I suppose people really appreciate yung very, very down-to-earth explanations.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Salamat,
Thank you.
Atty.
Maraming salamat, Dean Mel Santa Maria ng FEU College of Law. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that will be all for this edition of The Cheese. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ed Lingaupo News.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.